Hello everybody, I've decided to come outside today for the Explorer reading because it's such a nice day. So, I'm not entirely sure what we got up to last time, I forgot to check. I'll just start around here. But make sure the risks you take aren't taken to impress someone else. Fred frowned. It sounded like the kind of thing the masters said at school. That's the way people end up with jaguars chewing at their collarbones and nobody to love them for it. He wiped his eyes and stared at them. Risks, jaguars, said Con, noted. I took a risk once. I loved someone. 2 people, a woman, and we had a child. Did you know? We didn't know. No, said Lila gently. She exchanged a glance with Fred. I lost that gamble. I lost them. He set down the coconut and closed his eyes in a long, exhausted blink. But I am glad to have made the wager. Did you? Began Lila. I loved like I was unhinged, he said. His voice was rough. I came at love like a child making up arms. I worked out how to blink her name in Morse code. He gave a drunken grunt of laughter. I was very young, he said. People do not tell you that love is so terrifying. It is less like rainbows and butterflies and more like jumping onto the back of a moving dragon. Fred hesitated, wordless, but wanting to say something that would be large enough to meet the taut pain in the man's face. Before he could say anything, the explorer drank again, finishing the coconut in 2 immense gulps. Do you all do nothing but stare? I thought children gambled and frolicked. Do some gollicking. Framble. Fred looked at the others. He had no idea how to gamble. He believed it involved running in circles with your arms in the air and lifting your knees as high as they would go, which was not, he thought, something that seemed sensible in these circumstances. I don't think we're really the frolicking sort, said Fred. Disappointing, said the explorer. Are you drunk? Asked Con. Of course not, he belched reproachfully. I'm just perhaps the world itself is drunk. The jungle is a little more blurred than usual. I think that stuff must be strong, said Fred. That is impolite. I resent the implication. Sorry. Good, the explorer slurred. I like people best when they're silent or sorry. Do you need, began Lila, but he closed his eyes and turned away from them. My head aches. I can't look you in the voice. I shall sleep now. He lay down on the stone ground and closed his eyes. A noise like a motor car began to come from somewhere deep within his chest. Moving on the tips of their toes, the children returned to their own fire. As the dark spread over the city, a swarm of mosquitoes appeared. One of them got caught inside Fred's nose and bit his nostril. Is there a way to get rid of the mosquitoes? Said Con. I think smoking keeps them away, said Lila. Some of the men my parents work with do it. I heard that smoking makes you less hungry, said Con. We could try, said Fred, scratching his nose. He rolled up leaves, and Lila filled them with shredded grass and lichen, and Con lit them. Is this like real smoking? Gasped Lila. Hot, acrid smoke billowed into Fred's eyes. I've never tried. Does smoking taste a bit like a garden dyed in your face? He said. I think so, said Con, from the smell. Then I suppose yes, said Fred. He discreetly put his cigarette out inside a big empty snail shell. It didn't seem worth the feeling that his tongue was about to drop out of his mouth. Fred looked at the 2 girls, who were both spitting disgustedly into the fire. He'd never really known any girls his own age, but both Lila and Con could spit as far as any boy at school. Their spit had commitment and impact. He saw them grin at each other in the firelight. It was a peculiar night that night. Fred's thoughts kept returning to the man lying asleep by the fire at the other side of the ruined city square, and to his lost son and wife. The explorer was so alone, living with only the green and the birds and the endless jungle. But, Fred thought, it wasn't as if he was so much less alone himself. The thought made him shiver. He felt something touch his ankle. He jerked away, thinking of tarantulas, but it was a hand, Con's hand, gripping his ankle in her sleep. He hesitated, then he reached down and pressed his thumb on hers. He hoped the touch said, "We'll be all right. It will be all right." It was hard to be specific with thumbs. But it must have worked a little, because she grew still and her breathing became heavy and regular. Lila muttered in her sleep. Thaka lay entangled in her long dark hair. Fred looked up at the vine roof above them, scanning it for snakes, and then, his flint tight in his palm, he allowed himself to close his eyes. That's the end of that chapter. This one is called Fishing in the Dark. We've got a few minutes left. Fishing in the dark. The explorer hadn't moved by the time the sun rose. He lay snoring where they'd left him, a beetle perched on his chin. Max woke up first and kicked Fred in the crotch as he scrambled to his feet. Max scratched himself all over, then went running across the stone square, shook the explorer's shoulder and sat down on top of him. The explorer, startled, awake. Fred flinched, remembering what the man had said about his startle reflex, but he merely looked mildly, politely appalled. "Can I eat this?" Max asked. He thrust a handful of grass into the explorer's face. The explorer shifted Max gently onto the floor, sat up and began to blow on the fire. "No, you can't," he said. "You didn't even look." "The chances that the answer is yes are so slim." He looked up. "That's poisonous." "No." "Definitely poisonous or only maybe?" "Definitely." "Oh, and this?" He held up the explorer's chin beetle, which had fallen on the ground. "You could eat that," said the explorer. He gently took the beetle from him. "But the Maxer 2 hours from now would not thank you. As a rule of thumb, it's best not to eat things that are still moving." "But I'm hungry. It's only moving a tiny bit." "I would still empathetically discourage it." "What does that mean?" "It means no." "Oh." Max lay down on his back. He didn't cry, but his face looked blank and older than it should be. Quietly under his breath, he began to sing to himself in Portuguese. Fred scraped some dew from the leaves above him and used it to clean his face. He looked over at Max, properly looked for the first time in days. The boy was growing thin, and his cheekbones stuck out under his eyes. Lila had worked hard to make him look cared for and clean, but he had a snail trail of snot across his face and green dust in his eyebrows. The explorer was also looking down at Max. His face was shaping itself into peculiar expressions. His eyes were bright and his mouth tight. Abruptly he rose to his feet. His voice was brisk, artificially, unconvincingly brisk. "What are you all sitting about for? Time is precious. Shouldn't you be preparing for your journey?" "But how exactly? We don't know what to do," said Con. Her voice was almost a whine. Lila shot her a look. The explorer's expression was very dry. "If you have a preference for surviving, you'll need to know how to spear fish. There have been expeditions where the men and I survived on fish for half a year." Max's face lit up. "Fish? Right now?" "Tonight. There's a small lake not far from here." "But I'm hungry now," said Max. "It needs to be dark. You can spend the day making spears." "I tried that," said Fred. He slapped away a mosquito, "but the vines I used to tie the flints on kept breaking off." "Vines?" The man looked shocked. "You don't use vines to secure a spear. That would be like using packing tape to build a steam train. Idiot boy. You use intestines. Where are the guts from your bird?" Con pointed to the jungle, where they'd buried the intestines and other rejected bits at a safe distance. "Dig them up, heat them over the fire, and use them as string." He made a winding gesture as if tying a knot. "And don't bother me until then." Okay, thank you those people who let me know that they'd listened to the last video. I did forget to do a task at the end of the last video, I'm sorry. I will email the task for this one out, as I think more of you might see it that way. But I'm hoping you're enjoying the sunshine and enjoying the explorer too, because I am. See you soon. Bye!